afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. And aren't you glad we chose to do it indoors? So, on behalf of the Foundation's Board of Directors and the Military Women's Memorial, amazing staff, as well as all the service women and women veterans to whom this memorial pays tribute, I welcome each of you, and I thank you for joining us on this, our 26th formal observance of Memorial Day. Now, before we begin, I ask that we join our fellow Americans across the nation in a national moment of silence. Silent reflection and gratitude for the lives lost in service to America. Our ceremony is the area's last observance of the day, and as I've said many times before, we believe the best. Because the speakers at our program are individual women. Women who have served or are serving today in our armed forces. They are women, like many of you, for whom the ceremony of remembrance is personal, and their very presence is a statement of tribute to a fallen battle buddy, a family member, or a friend. So thank you for joining us to pay tribute and to remember the long line of service women and men who have lost their lives in service to the nation. We offer this humble ceremony in tribute to those who gave so much. And I'd like to call out and welcome a few of our special guests. Our Foundation Board Chair, Major General Retired Jan Edmonds, that I now call a personal dear friend, former Chief of the Army Nurse Corps, retired Brigadier General Clara Adams Ender. There are so many in this room that we could keep going. I'm going to leave it at that, and we're going to move on. I want to welcome all of the members of the military, the veteran, the patriotic, fraternal organizations who are with us today to commemorate this incredible Memorial Day. They include the Gold Star Wives of America, the National Society Colonial Dames of America DC Chapter, the Air Force Security Forces Association Eagle Chapter, America Lodge number 57, Freemasonry for Women, Blue Star Mothers of America, the Women's Army Corps Veterans Association, Army Women United, the Northern Virginia Chapter of the Military Order of the World Wars, the Naval Order of the United States, National Capital Commandery, Vietnam Veterans of America, and National Society Daughters of the American Revolution. Thank you to all our guests for joining us to honor and remember fallen in this annual Memorial Day program. So now I'll ask you, if you're able, to please stand for the presentation of colors by the United States Ceremonial Color Guard. The presentation of the colors will be followed by the national anthem, sung by Master Sergeant Sarah Sheffield from the United States Marine Band, President's Son, world-class vocalist. We've been honored to have Master Sergeant Sheffield join us for many of our ceremonies. Chaplain, Lieutenant Commander Janita Predator, Naval Academy's 3rd Battalion Chaplain, will deliver the communication. Captain Predator is an 11-year veteran of the U.S. Navy. She's provided rabbinical support to Marine Corps and naval units, including the Naval Special Warfare Group. She has served ashore and afloat and is a veteran of 2 deployments. Present the colors.
Present.
If you would join me in prayer. Savior, one who is known by many names, out of the depths of sadness and grief we cry out to you. Of our mouths you have heard our soul-shattering screams. The truth of our loved ones, our battle buddies, our mentors, our friends who have never come home. Each day we feel the loss of their presence, their laugh, their look, their comfortable silence, wishing they were on the other end of a much-needed phone call. And today we come together to grieve together, to recite the names of our fallen brothers and sisters in arms aloud and in our hearts. We pray to you, Eternal, that through this act of collective remembrance, that we gain strength from their presence of those who understand our jagged loss, our open wounds, and bring us forward in our healing process. Amen.
Please be seated. Say again, thank you for the color guard. Thank you to Sarah Sheffield. She shared with me, our amazing singer of the national anthem, that she has been selected. For those of us that are warrant officers, I'm very pleased to tell you that she will be commissioning to the Navy as a Marine warrant officer later this year. And what this does mean is that she will no longer be part of the band in the same capacity, but it doesn't mean that her lovely voice will not be heard here in the future as well. Certainly, Chaplain, thank you. I was thinking as I was listening to you say some of those words, really, I need to speak right after you say that. And when we talk about grieving for those that have been lost, it's an incredible time. So at our groundbreaking ceremony back in 1995, 28 years ago, a tradition began of having a servicewoman or a woman veteran from each branch of service speak at our ceremonies. Why? Because at this memorial, we pay tribute individually and collectively to all the women who have and who serve. And who better to speak for them than one of them? The first to speak for service to our country and what this day means to her, as well as to place rose petals in honor and memory of fallen Army comrades, is Captain Promotable Sarah Higgins. Captain Higgins is an Iowa native, received her commission in 2013. She's a combat veteran with 2 tours in Afghanistan and has been assigned at the Pentagon for the past 4 years, which I argue should count as another combat tour. In 2021, she was awarded the prestigious General Douglas MacArthur Leadership Award, which is presented annually to just the top 28 company grade officers across the entire million-person Army. 28. She is one of those. In addition to being selected, we only choose slackers to speak, just so you'll know that now. Wait for it. In addition to being selected for promotion to major, she's also been selected to the Army's Command and General Staff College. Captain Higgins is the recipient of numerous awards and decorations, including the Bronze Star, the Meritorious Service Medal, and the Army Commendation Medal. Please welcome Captain Sarah.
Good afternoon. I'm honored to be here today and wish to extend my gratitude to Phyllis and the Military Women's Memorial for allowing me to speak today. I'm a proud Army soldier. I fell in love with the Army as a teenager and quickly knew it was my calling. My goal was, and always is, to have an impact and make a difference for the soldiers I support and lead. As a human resources officer, I've got to do just that. I'm there for every major facet of a soldier's life, whether it's pay, promotions, or awards, or even loss. Over the last 10 years, I've served in multiple capacities: an S1 for tactical units, a company commander, and a Pentagon staff officer. Throughout all of those, I've experienced the loss of a soldier, both in a combat zone and here at home. When the notification comes to the leadership, the air feels as if it has been sucked out of the room, the happiest atmosphere, now sobering and somber. As leaders, there are steps we have to take to ensure the dignity and respect of the fallen, but rarely do we take time to mourn the loss in that moment, to reflect on that soldier's life and how it's been cut too short. It's not usually until the unit memorial ceremony, when final roll call occurs and taps begins to play, that we as leaders and fellow soldiers truly begin to reflect and mourn. When the first note of taps was played when I was in Afghanistan in August of 2014, the stoic and operational mindset I maintained for the weeks following the death of Sergeant Christopher Mullally fell away. I still remember my first sergeant putting his hand on my shoulder to remind me it's okay to be human. In 2018, at the death of Private Nicole Burnham, I coached my battalion commander only 5 days into his command, what needed to occur, and also reminded him that it was okay to be human. And myself, as a commander, the one thing you hope for is to never lose a soldier. Unfortunately, that was not the case, and I was reminded more than once that life is fragile. I stood with members of the Army staff group that lost a soldier, and we all reminded each other, again, it's okay to be human. To wonder what more we could have done to ensure that that soldier was still here. Memorial Day means even more to me now, following the passing of my grandfather, Corporal Norbert Heitenberger, a draftee as a pharmacist from 1952 to 1954, who was stationed at the hospital in Paris. He passed away last year at the age of 92. And though he wasn't proud of his service, because as he always said, I sat at a hospital giving medication to those who really served and sacrificed. But I have so often reminded him before he passed, your service was no less a sacrifice. I place these rose petals in honor and tribute to the men and women of the United States Army who have gone before us. Thank you.
Kim Brooks, once a Marine, always a Marine, is a Marine veteran, having served in both the Marine Corps and the Marine Corps Reserve for 13 years, achieving the rank of sergeant. Born in Portland, Oregon, she's a proud member of the Co-Yukon Athabasca Caribou Clan. Did I get that right? Not too bad, from Alaska. She enlisted as a communication center operator and served stateside as well as in Okinawa. During the first Gulf War, and was a member of the emergency reaction team where she assisted in assembling the case files of Marines wounded or killed in action. Honorably discharged in 2001, she is a Defense Department civilian employee serving at the Marine Corps Training and Education Command in Quantico, where she is the G6 Operations Deputy Branch Head, focusing on information technology and communication services. Please welcome United States Marine Corps veteran, Kim Brooks.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank everyone for attending today, to coming and join us on this hallowed ground, to honor the brave men and women who have come and gone before, and some who have paid the ultimate price. I have a little bit of here of who I am, and she's already introduced me, so I'm going to forgo that part. I am going to add that I am also, yes, I am a Marine Corps veteran. I am a member of the Koyukon Athabascan tribe from Alaska, but I'm also one proud Marine Corps mama.
All right.
While in writing this speech, I contemplated on what does Memorial Day mean to me. For me, it's a sacred day, a day of reflection and appreciation for all who have come before and paved the way, not only for myself, but for my fellow veterans, and active duty, for those who are in this very room today. In reflection, I look to my Marine Corps history, and I'd like to share a handful of stats on female veterans. In 1918, Gulf May Johnson was our first female Marine. 1923, Minnie Spotted was the first Native American to join the Marine Corps. 1949, Annie Graham was the first African American who joined the Marine Corps. And the next day, following suit, Anne E. Lamb joined the Marine Corps. 1965, Rose Franco was the first Hispanic female Marine promoted to chief warrant officer. 1974 was a big year for the Marines, especially for women. In that year, Regina Muser was the first female Marine tank mechanic. Harriet Holstein became the first female military policewoman. Deborah J. Graham became the first female Marine officer in military and police. Shirley Brown was the first female Marine to graduate out of a 34-week advanced comm officer course. And in 1974, this was also the year that the Women Officer School was integrated into the counterpart male companies. So as you can see, throughout Marine Corps history, many women have paved the way for our future Marines today, which brings us today. The first female recruit battalion stepped off the bus at the Marine Corps Recruit Depot in San Diego on February 9th, 2021. That was just 2 years ago. To this day, women are still making history in the United States military, which brings us full circle, and sadly I might say, that next month, on June 15th, will be the deactivation of the 4th Recruit Training Battalion. For those of you who don't know, this is the historic female battalion at Parris Island. Memorial Day is a day of remembrance and a day to honor our fallen warriors, my brothers and sisters. Not just a day for them, but a day for their families, the husbands, wives, brothers, sisters, those who know firsthand the sacrifice of the fallen. So in parting, I leave you with a two-part challenge. When you go back home and you're out and about, and when you see that little man or that little woman with that Vietnam veteran hat on, please stop and shake their hand and look them straight in the eye and say, welcome home, and thank you for your service. For most of us who know that during that time, the Vietnam vets did not receive a welcome home they so richly deserved. The second part of that challenge is if you see a female wearing a Marine Corps hat, U.S. Army hat, Air Force hat, Navy hat, Coast Guard hat, Space Force hat, to also stop and shake their hand and give them recognition, because far too often women veterans get overlooked. So thank you. Places rose medals on behalf of all the United States Marines who have gone before.
Thank you. Just yesterday, I visited Section 60 here in Arlington and purposely went to look for Angie, one of the young women Marines that died at Abbey Gate 2 years ago. She is laid to rest here. So thank you for remembering all of the Marines. So we're honored today as well to have our Navy speaker, Senior Chief Petty Officer Angela Hoffman. She grew up in Washington State and entered the Navy in 1998. An honor graduate from the Defense Language Institute, she's a Chinese Mandarin linguist and a cryptologic analyst. Her specialty is cryptologic technician interpretive, which, in addition to linguist, she's a cultural expert, able to translate and interpret foreign communications. Senior Chief has worked on the watch floor, served as a language instructor, geospatial analyst, served with the highly selective Advanced Language Response Team at the Navy Information Operations Command, was assigned at the Naval Academy with the International Programs Office, and is currently the Cryptologic Warfare Activity 65 as the Operational Senior Enlisted Leader. Senior Chiefs is the recipient of many awards, including the Defense Meritorious Service Medal, 2 awards of the Joint Commendation Medal, and 3 awards of the Navy and Marine Corps Commendation. Please welcome Senior Chief Petty Officer Angela Hoffman.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for having me. It's truly an honor to be here. When I joined the Navy 25 years ago, I joined for many of the reasons that the young adults do. To get free college, to travel the world, to get new adventures. This reason and motivation carried on for the first couple of years, until I was stationed in Pearl Harbor and drove past the USS Arizona every day from the British Pearl. Until I heard a recording of a Mayday call from the EP-3 pilot who made an emergency landing in China. Until I was awakened by my roommate screaming that a plane had struck the World Trade Center. Until I saw names and faces of the people I passed in the hallways plastered in the news as casualties of war. Until I, too, shipped off to Baghdad for a 6-month tour. Until my friend Shannon was killed by a suicide bomber in Syria. Through each of these moments, the gravity of my job became so great that the tenor of my service changed. I dove into the history books to learn of the veterans of the past and sought survivors to hear their stories. I transitioned my personal goals from finishing college to honoring the fallen. And now I try to preserve the memory of those who served before in order to ensure those that come after will not have to endure the same tragedies of the past. Throughout the years, I have had the honor and pleasure to meet Pearl Harbor survivors, Holocaust survivors, Medal of Honor recipients, and other veterans from every conflict, my heroes. I was able to hear their stories, some of survival, some of sadness, all of honor. And while these veterans were heroes in my eyes, if you ask them, they were just doing their jobs. Shannon Cannon was one such hero. Yes, she died in a horrific way in Syria, doing a mission she loved and truly believed that was not what made her a hero. When she was home, she was always looking out for her fellow service members. She was always seeking ways to improve the missions and livelihoods of her sailors. Where she found problems, she sought solutions, and the Navy is a partner place to visit her. I could go on for hours watching, but I will summarize to say she was an amazing woman, sailor, mother, and friend, who is dearly missed by all who crossed paths with her. A few years ago, I met Master Chief Peter Solar, a World War II Korea veteran. During our conversation, he pointed to a group of children and asked if I saw the 5-year-old that was among them. He proceeded to tell me about his time in Open Mountain and shared that the atrocities he witnessed were unlike anything he could have ever imagined. He then said, I would stand up right now, put my uniform on, and relive every single moment of that time if it would prevent that 5-year-old from having to go through what we went through back then. These stories serve as reminders of the honor, pride, and sacrifice our veterans have had through the years. We must continue to pass on these stories so that they can live beyond the generation that experienced them, in hopes that we can prevent similar events from occurring in the future. Today, Memorial Day, is the day to remind us to carry on these legacies and to renew our own honor, pride, and patriotism. I place these rose petals in honor of and in tribute to the men and women of the United States Navy.
As a fellow graduate of the Best Language Institute, Shannon was just amazing. Just an incredible person. And we are particularly pleased to have Captain Tiffany Sykes join us today on behalf of Air Force women. Captain Sykes received her commission in 2017, and to our recollection, is the very first military lawyer from any branch of service to speak at one of our ceremonies. You are a trailblazer, Captain Sykes, and she has served in Texas along the U.S.-Mexico border, supporting the Southwest Border Mission operations. As the Chief of Military Justice at RAF Lakenheath, United Kingdom, she successfully kept the justice system moving in the midst of a lockdown in a foreign country during the COVID pandemic. She has also served as the litigation attorney and is presently the Personnel Law Branch Deputy Chief in the Civil Law Directorate at Joint Base Andrews here in D.C. But why do we always have such long titles? Captain Sykes has received 2 awards of the Air Force and Space Commendation Medal, and she is the recipient of the Air and Space Outstanding Unit Award. Please welcome our lawyer, Captain Tiffany Sykes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm honored to speak on behalf of the servicemen and women of the United States Air Force. I joined the military because my father was in the military. 28-year Army chaplain, and I was daddy's little girl growing up. And so the first word that comes to mind when I think of Memorial Day is grateful. My father was serving in the Pentagon on 9/11. And I'm just grateful that he was there to provide the service to people, but also more grateful that he did come home correct. You go to law school, you tell your parents you're going to the military, and they're like, what is the military need lawyers from? And so, whether you're a commander or an airman who comes to my office needing legal assistance, it spanned everything. We see some of the worst in people, we also see some of the best in people. And so it was my first assignment in Texas, right on the Mexico border. I'll never forget, I got a phone call from my boss. We had a plane fall out of the sky. And no one prepares you for that phone call as a young officer, as a young woman, to go into the CAC and sit there and to try to help process what's happening. I'll never forget the faces of the parents of the airmen that we lost. That one hits a little closer to home because not 1 month before that plane dropped out of the sky was that airman sitting in my office getting legal assistance. And I'm forever grateful to this day that I was able to provide that family with some type of closure. Having had a will done, having their wishes laid out. These are the things that people don't necessarily think about when they're young airmen or young officers or young enlisted people. So I'm forever grateful that airman came to my office that day to get that information and services. So that was one less thing that his parents had to worry about. When I think about the privilege and the opportunity I have to have this uniform on, I think of all the women who came before me. I think of the people who have served in my family. I come from a long military line of military family. Unfortunately, only men, so I'm happy to say I'm the first woman to be serving in my family. I hope to. I hope in the future to have daughters of my own and to continue that tradition because in the Sykes family, service is sacrifice and sacrifice is service. And whether it was the leadership of my father as a chaplain, as he served through the Oak Pass Hotel, and told me the stories of that, whether it's the airmen that come back from deployment and come into my office and just want to talk. A lot of people don't think of lawyers as therapists, but we do have a therapist hat as well when we're talking to our airmen. So grateful and thankful are the two words that come to mind for me. So I want to thank you all for being here today, for taking time out of your day to sit and reflect and think. And as you walk through the cemetery and you're seeing the names, read the names out loud, say their names. They are still here with us. They are living among us, and I feel them in my spirit. I place these rose petals in honor and tribute to the men and women of the United States Air Force who have gone before me. Thank you.
And now I have the pleasure of welcoming Space Force Guardian, Chief Master Sergeant Cassandra Cat Buthorn. Chief Buthorn is the Intelligence, Surveillance, and Reconnaissance Senior Enlisted Leader at U.S. Space Force Headquarters in the Pentagon. Entering the Air Force in 2000, she is a combat veteran of wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, has had numerous tours of duty in Korea and Germany. She's an electronic systems and signal intelligence expert and served at all levels, including important leadership positions. She transferred to the U.S. Space Force in 2020 and is currently serving to build the foundation for present and future Space Force Guardians. Chief Buthorn is the recipient of numerous awards and decorations, including 3 awards of the Defense Meritorious Service Medal, 3 awards of the Meritorious Medal, and 2 awards of the Joint Service Commendation Medal. A stellar airman and leader, she has been named both Senior Non-Commissioned Officer and Non-Commissioned Officer of the Year multiple times. Please welcome Chief Master Sergeant Cassandra.
I love it. I'm the only one out here who's actually brought the phone and the technology style, so I'm just going to say I'm the old one. Y'all figured it out. All right, so she already introduced me and I did all the things, but I want to take the time to say, guess what? Thank you, because I see a whole bunch of hats out here and people who have served as well. Please stand. I'd like to recognize you all out here who have served, and not just the ones up front. So. Behind the scenes, we all know how these events take and take a lot of time. Despite all of our best efforts, something always goes wrong. All right, so I've been in for 23 years. My husband has been for 26, is also a chief in the Space Force. I want to highlight him because it's not just me up here, it's him with me. And it takes that joint effort. And I don't know if anybody's joint bill out here, but it takes a lot of work to get both going. And it's painful. Let's just put it that way. But at the same point in time, without him by my side, I cannot be here and I would not be here this way. So, up to him. I wanted to talk about the Space Force real quick. They asked me to speak about someone specifically. We have not had a lawsuit on that for providing our ultimate sacrifice for being here. So what I wanted to talk about was the people who are making it and standing up for the Space Force. And they're called inter-service transferees. For those who don't know what that means, inter-service transferees are the people who went directly from these services up front and the ones out in the crowd. Air Force, Marine, Army, Navy, and they're going directly from their service, and they're coming into the Space Force. And they're anywhere from 2 years in the service all the way up to past 20. And they're making that change. They're making it a direct duty without any education, additional changes. They have to learn a new uniform. They have to learn new regulations on top of being what a military professional is all about. It's hard. It's not only being hard, it's you have to deal with that along dealing with the normal life stressors. And these folks I want to recognize because they're taking that time to take a chance on a new service. And yes, we got joked about because everyone's seen the Space Force show. Yeah, I know. It's okay. It's always the newest service that gets made fun of. The Air Force is the chair force. Remember this. So I chose to put that new kid on the block twice over. I just like to point that out. But at the same time, you know it's hard. And I want those folks to be recognized because we had our first suicide in the Space Force about 3 weeks ago. And I know that's a hard thing to talk about. Not everyone wants to have that conversation. But at the end of the day, a loss is a loss and we all are equal. And we need to recognize them for their sacrifice and everything they've done. So with that, I'm going to say thank you to the inter-service transferees, all 2,000 plus of them. And then I also want to thank my sisters down here for giving those people up into our ranks. Because that's hard, because you guys are dealing with the loss of those professionals and those educated, experienced individuals. So thank you. And thank you for the kind welcome. Probably won't invite me back now, but it's okay. But thank you. And I'm going to go ahead and place these petals as a representative for all the men and women from my service. We honor and tribute for their legacy and those who come after us and before us.
Thank you. You are welcome here anytime. I haven't really given it that much thought about the inter-service transferees, because you're right, I'm Army, so we make fun of the chair force, and now we make fun of the Guardians, but we do that because we're siblings. And if anybody outside of the military community brags on anybody else, we are joint forces and ready to go back. My kid sister, we will fight over that one for sure. So U.S. Coast Guard Reserve Lieutenant Commander April Killing, a Floridian and a Merchant Marine Academy graduate, was commissioned into the Navy in 2006 and later into the Coast Guard in 2008 as a Maritime Prevention Officer. Are you preventing maritime? She's currently assigned to the Coast Guard National Command Center as a duty watch officer, where she maintains situational awareness of all significant Coast Guard operations worldwide in direct support of the Office of the Commandant. Admiral Linda. Just needed to put that out there. She coordinates information flows to national level decision makers, Coast Guard forces, federal, state, and local authorities, and to industry. Her previous assignments include Corpus Christi, Texas, Dam Neck, and Portsmouth, Virginia. Among her many awards are the Strategic Sea Lift Officer Warfare Insignia, Coast Guard Achievement Medal, Merchant Marine Outstanding Achievement Medal, and 3 Commandant Letters of Commendation with O device. Please welcome Lieutenant Commander Killing.
Service member, Memorial Day has always been a time of reflection and a time when we come together as a family to remember those who paid the ultimate price in defense of our great nation. It is a time when my family remembers my great uncle, First Lieutenant Wayne Whitney Martin. My uncle was an Air Force rescue helicopter pilot participating in combat search and rescue operations for the crew of a downed F-105 over Vietnam. His helicopter was hit by ground fire and crashed.
Twain was captured and held captive in Laos. He successfully escaped captivity, but was killed before he could reach safety. In my Coast Guard family, we take time to reflect on the lives of those Coast Guardsmen we've lost in our 232-year history. We remember the life of Lieutenant Colleen Kane, the first female helicopter pilot in the Coast Guard, who died with her crew on a rescue mission while responding to the distress call of a fishing vessel taking on water off the coast of Maui. Lieutenant Kane and Uncle Dwayne knew the risks associated with search and rescue operations and the dangers they faced. They went anyways. They willingly risked their lives and futures, and they paid the ultimate price so that others can live. Today, we remember them, we honor them, and we miss them. But today, we also ensure that their story and their legacies set the example for current and future generations. Like my father, grandfather, great-uncle, and great-grandfather. Today, those that wear the cloth of our nation continue to pledge their lives to protect and defend our freedom. And whether my sons and daughter choose the same path of service as us, we will teach them of the heroic courage and bravery of the men and women who rest beside the white carved stones outside these doors. And our children's path will be walked with gratefulness for these sacrifices which protects their freedom. I place these rose petals in honor and in tribute to the men and women of the United States Coast Guard who've gone before us.
My distinct honor to introduce our keynote speaker, Brenda Fulton, the VA's Assistant Secretary, Office of Public and Intergovernmental Affairs. In this key position since July of 2022, she had previously served as the Chief Administrator of the New Jersey Motor Vehicle Commission. She's a great friend of the Military Women's Memorial, and she is a graduate of the first-year group at West Point that allowed women in 1980. She was commissioned into the United States Army as a signal officer. She served as a platoon leader, a staff officer, and a company commander in Germany until she received an honorable discharge as a captain. As an Army veteran, she has played a pivotal role in repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and led Sparta in fighting to end the ban on transgender service members. She was the first openly gay member of West Point's Board of Visitors, where she advocated for increased admission for women and people of color. Ms. Fulton has over 20 years of experience in brand management in Fortune 100 companies, including Procter & Gamble, Schering-Plough, Merck, and Pfizer. Get ready for a ride. Sue gets up here. She's going to take you on one. Please welcome Sue.
Under-promise and over-deliver. Thank you so much. It's always an honor to be at the Military Women's Memorial. I never met Emily Perez. We were both teenagers when we first raised our right hands on the plane at West Point to solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. We were both PKs. In both cases, the P was our mom. Her mom was a Baptist preacher, my mom a high school principal. We were both singers and both women of faith. She sang solos in the gospel choir. I sang at 5 o'clock Mass. But Emily's accomplishments far outstripped mine. Her good friend Mary Tobin says, Emily had the spirit of a leader from day one. As Mary laughed about how even as a plebe, Emily's confidence was a lot for the upperclassmen to handle. Her nickname in high school was Kobe because she was the best at everything. And at West Point it was Taz because she had the energy of Tasmanian devil. No one was surprised, as Mary says, when Emily ascended to one of the highest positions in the Corps of Cadets, Brigade Sergeant Major, the first woman of color to do so. I graduated in the first West Point class to include women and went off to Germany. Emily graduated 25 years later in a class that went to war. She threw her hat in the air and became one of the handful of black women, even more rare black Latina, who graduated West Point each year, and 7 months later set foot in Iraq. Emily was a medical service corps officer, not considered combat arms, but in Iraq that meant she led a lot of convoys. And I mean led. She insisted on being in the first vehicle every time, even though that meant much greater risk. September 12, 2006, she wasn't supposed to even be in the convoy. But Emily Jasmine Tatum Perez wasn't about to let her troops go on that mission without her. She was in her usual place in the first vehicle on the convoy when an IED exploded, ending Emily's life at age 23. Little known fact, it was attending Emily's funeral at West Point not long after the funeral of 2003 grad First Lieutenant Laura Walker when the superintendent finally decided that the alma mater should no longer refer to West Point graduates as its sons and began the process to change the language. So I never met Emily Perez, but I met her mom. Each year, the rising sophomores at West Point, called yearlings, have a summer of cadet field training in which their overall class is designated in honor of a graduate who gave their life in the line of duty. In 2016, the yearling class became Task Force Perez. At the ceremony completing their training, Emily's mother spoke to the cadets. Reverend Vicki Perez told Emily's story, how she was unstoppable, unconquerable, with a contagious laugh and a relentlessly, annoyingly positive attitude. Within this was embedded the story of remarkable courage. Mrs. Perez never dwelt on her and her husband Daniel's grief, but instead on their pride. In her gripping words, in her unmistakable and irresistible preacher's cadence, she brought forth from us a desire, a commitment to strive to be like Emily, to do better, to lead, to do the right thing, no matter the cost. Emily's portrait sits there about halfway down, under the heading, The Price of Freedom. I did know Dr. Kate Hendricks Thomas, a Marine military police officer who deployed to Fallujah in early 2005, the year before Emily. Kate was unstoppable too, and relentlessly positive. She completed her deployment, left the Marine Corps, and got her doctorate in wellness research. She became a vocal expert in and advocate for resilience and mental health for veterans and service members. I met her when we were both on a panel at the National Defense University. From the jump, she made me laugh. I made her laugh. I remember her joy and her commitment to fight like hell for veterans and service members. I remember her vitality, and we promised to keep in touch. But the war caught up with Kate. Her time living, working, and running around Fallujah's burn pits had taken its toll. At 38 years old, still feeling healthy, she was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer, 3 different types. Kate's advocacy shifted to fighting for those who've been impacted by toxic exposures. She remained just as fierce as she educated the public about these issues, dramatically testifying before Congress. Kate died April 5th, 2022, at the age of 42. But thanks to Kate and others like her, too many others like her, the PACT Act became law and unlocked VA benefits and care for millions of veterans and survivors. Emily was was killed in an explosion, a moment of violence. Kate was killed by a time bomb planted during her deployment. I remember my heroes, Emily and Kate, today. For me, the point of Memorial Day, though, is not just to remember those who gave their lives in service to our country. It's to rededicate. It's to recommit. It's to find the courage to fight or fight harder for the values we believe in, for the Constitution we swore an oath to protect, for the country we love. Duty, honor, country. Honor, courage, commitment. Selfless service, honor, integrity, personal courage. Always ready. Always faithful. At the end of the movie Saving Private Ryan, Tom Hanks' character in his dying breath tells the young private, earn this. Earn the sacrifice that was made on your behalf. Every service member who gave their lives, every woman who gave the last full measure, their courage and sacrifice whispers to us, earn this. We can, of course. It's a debt we can never repay. But that doesn't mean we should stop trying. All of us at VA hear them, like all of you do. We each have names inscribed on our hearts. Emily and Kate and Laura and Lisa and Sarah and Jackie and Joan. God grant us the courage and strength to do our best every day, to be worthy of them, to be worthy of her who shall have borne the battle. Amen. Thank you.
Pretty good ride. That's the man is Fulton getting choked up. So I want to present to her, another one, when she just placed rose petals for. Her story is in our national database. Every one of these women that have gone before us, and every one that is still here, deserves to have their story told in our national database. So Sue, thank you for being our keynote speaker today. Hope you enjoyed that ride. This is her classmates. Brenda, class of 80. At 63 years of age, she succumbed to cancer. Her story is in our database, and so this is for you to take. Incredible stories. Year after year to welcome a variety of organizations to pay their respects and to honor the legions of service members who have died in service to our great nation. Today, I have the honor of announcing 9 such organizations as they place a wreath in tribute to those patriots and heroes who have gone before us. First, Mrs. Eleanor Boyce, President of the National Society Colonial Dames of America, D.C. chapter, will place place our first wreath. This is the 25th year the DC Dames have placed a wreath with us. In the early years, the wreaths were made from boxwood shrubs at the historic Dumbarton House, the Dames' national headquarters in Washington, D.C. Next, the Eagle Chapter, Air Force Security Forces Association wreath will be placed by retired Air Force Master Sergeant Rachel Viss, Eagle Chapter Secretary. The wreath also honors Air Force security airmen who have lost their lives in service to the nation. Eagle Chapter has been a stalwart support of this Memorial Day program, placing a wreath nearly every year. The Gold Star Wives of America wreath. In addition to being a Gold Star wife, Pam is a veteran. Having served as an Army nurse captain. Members of the Gold Star Wives have attended every one of our ceremonies. Thank you for coming today. For your support of the spouses of American service members and of our veterans. I'm not sure, did you get a good photo of that? Not quite, go back. We need it, replay. Cool. Just lesson learned, everybody's coming up. Please wait until later. Photographer gives you a thumbs up that she's happy with the shot. Thank you. Our fourth wreath is from the Military Order of the World Wars in Northern Virginia chapter and will be placed by Chapter Commander, retired Army Colonel Vince Ogilvie. The Military Order of the World Wars was created in 1919 at the suggestion of General of the Army John J. Pershing. Thank you, Colonel. Next, the America Lodge number 57. Freemasonry for Women wreath will be placed by the Worshipful Master, Mortis Elias. And I understand we also have significant guests here from across the pond. The Right Worshipful Deputy Grand Master from England. Association, Army Women United. The wreath is placed by National President, retired Army Chief Warrant Officer 3, Lori Weissong, and members of the Honor Guard team. Jumping ship. 50th commemoration of the Vietnam era, just on May 11 through 13. I'm going to say it again.
Welcome home.
Next, retired U.S. Merchant Marine Chief Purser Julius Jackson will place a wreath on behalf of the Naval Order of the United States National Capital Commandery. The organization was established in 1890 to encourage research and writing on naval and maritime subjects and preserve artifacts of American naval and maritime history. This is the first year the order has joined us. Thank you. Lastly, I will ask Stacey Anders, President of the Blue Star Mothers of America, to come to the podium. In lieu of a wreath, Blue Star Mothers has asked if they might present a check to us. And guess what I said? Yes, please. The next part of the program is our second tradition for our Memorial Day program. Beginning with the dedication in 1997, rose petals have been placed in tribute to and in memory of those who have left us. This is in keeping with the words from the 1868 General Order establishing this day of remembrance, to gather around their sacred remains and garland passionless mounds that are above them, the choicest flowers of spring. Each Memorial Day, we have placed rose petals for the women who have died in conflicts in which America is involved since the last Memorial Day. It is fitting that here at her memorial, we publicly honor and speak her name for the ages. I should be happy right now, but it's choking me out. I'm grateful to announce that we have not had to add any name to the listing of the 177 servicewomen since last Memorial Day. I will, however, place rose petals in tribute to a beloved woman Marine and former founding Military Women's Memorial Board member, Teresa Sue Sousa. She served on the board for 17 years, affectionately known as our founding mother by the Women Marine Association. She served as its national president and attended every national convention until last year. Sue is 96. She died on May 5th of this year. She was a great American, an incredible patriot, and she will be sorely missed by many. Anyone in the audience who cares to place rose petals in tribute is encouraged now to follow me. Bring the microphone down and welcome them forward if you have somebody you'd like to recognize at this time.
Airman First Class Elizabeth Jacobson.
Sergeant First Class Angelina Jolly.
Tammy Schneider, designated 3 Air Force.
Summer Technician Senior Chief Petty Officer Sue Messenger.
And again,
Master Sergeant Tara.
Lieutenant Lane, Army Nurse.
On behalf of her parents, Jessica, Dawn, Lynn, and Oregon.
Take time. Let's get the microphone. We're bringing a new one to you. Back up, plan, recommend.
My sister, Tech Sergeant Stella 9, Air Force.
My sister, Rose Patricia O'Grady, Air Force nurse, founding sponsor of WIMSA, friend of Wilma, and I've been here many times with my older sisters. They love this place, and I hope all of you can support it. I'm sure you do. Hopefully, thank you for us to come. Thank you.
She's taking off the microphone.
Colonel Jennifer Signiago, United States Army Medical Service Corps.
First Lieutenant Ashley Rose Carroll, United States Marine Corps.
On behalf of American Lodge number 57 and our brethren visiting from the UK, to all of our courageous sisters not named, we honor you.
And please feel free, if you care to do this, once the ceremony is done, please feel free to take advantage of that and to honor one of our fallen. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Following benediction and taps, I hope you'll join us for refreshments, as well as take part in the Mindful Memorial Fallen Warrior Ribbon Exhibit, which pays tribute this year to the 7,025 servicemen and women who have died in the theaters of operation since September 11, 2001. This is the 10th year Armor Down has brought the Fallen Warrior Ribbon Memorial to the Military Women's Memorial. I also welcome you, after the ceremony, to come forward, place rose petals in memory of a loved one, a friend, or a colleague if you did not take the opportunity a moment ago. And lastly, on the back of your program is information about our celebration on June 12th, Women Veteran Recognition Day. It's the 75th anniversary of the landmark legislation that gave us the opportunity to make the military a career. So I hope you'll join us. We'll also be celebrating that permanent place in military and a chance for a career that we did not have until 1948. And check out our website. We've got a party on the 4th of July here that is to be unmatched. I can promise you that. But before we call for the benediction and the playing of taps, I'd like to invite someone back up here to the podium. As we noted during Sarah's introduction, she has been selected for the Army's prestigious Command and General Staff College in Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. I'll be leaving for that assignment soon. And we here at the Military Women's Memorial have been blessed for the past 2 years to have Sarah serve as a volunteer here. She is one of those folks who generously will do anything at all. From IT wizardry, thank you so much, she has found things and done things for us that none of us could figure out, to graciously assisting visitors, to setting up programs, and yes, she'll be changing out of that lovely Army uniform to help us clean up after this one is done. Her Military Women's Memorial friends thought it fitting to have a flag unfurled here. On Armed Forces Day, the day that the nation honors the hard work and dedication of its currently serving men and women. So Sarah, it's my honor on behalf of the staff to present this flag to you. Come on up. And may it remind you not only of the 3 million women who serve this nation, but of your friends here at the Memorial. At this time, I would ask you to please stand for the benedictions and give my chaplain creditor. And that will be followed by the playing of taps by Master Sergeant Amy McCabe, the United States Marine Band, and President's Own. Once again, you join me in prayer. Source of life, today we created the sacred space to honor our fallen soldiers, Marines, sailors, airmen, and coasties. And though the depth of each of our wounds from their losses are different, we share their stories, that their names and their legacies will not be forgotten in the passage of time. So help us to educate those who do not understand the importance of this day. The freedoms they enjoyed came from a price paid in the sacrifice of the brave, the scared, the unknown valorous, and the still unnamed heroes. May we not only honor our lost family, our colleagues, and friends with words, but honor them with our deeds. God is eternal to make this world a better place with our actions, together, service members, veterans, and civilians. As you have taught us, the threefold cord is not easily broken. Amen.